Tatsumi Waikalo. Good morning, everyone. Kaitiyayo. Good morning. Let's do it again. I liked that. Kaitiyayo Waikalo. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My thanks to you for having me here this morning, for inviting me into this sacred place that you call your spiritual home, for giving me a chance to come and share my stories and to share a part of my heart with you and your hearts with me. Thank you especially to Liz and Zaidi and Ellie. Ellie gave me a flower and some strawberries this morning. It was very wonderful, beautiful from your garden. Thank you. And my student Lupita, I don't think she's here this morning, but she's a member of your congregation, and she came up to me at school. I work at PSU, and was super excited that I was coming here, and that sort of boosted me to like, yes, I'm gonna do this. My students can be here. It's gonna be great because she's not here. So she'll hear from me on Monday. I want to begin, as I always begin, with a story. In 1854, a Suquamish Duwamish man named Seol, also known as Seattle, chief of the Duwamish people, is said to have spoken the following words when Washington State Governor Isaac Ingalls Stevens called upon him to discuss the surrender of traditional lands to white settlers, the lands where the Duwamish people had lived for at least 10,000 years. At least 10,000 years they lived in this place. That's 8,000 years before the birth of Christ. That's 8,000 years before the story of Christianity even began. Seol said, "The bones of our ancestors are sacred, and their resting places are hallowed ground. Our dead never forget the beautiful world that gave them being. Every part of this soil is sacred in the estimation of my people. Every hillside, every valley, every plain and grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event." Okay, Lupita just got here. Every hillside, I'm going to say that sentence over again. Every hillside, every valley, every plain, and every grove has been hallowed by some sad or happy event in days long vanished. The very dust upon which you now stand responds more lovingly to our footsteps than to yours, because it is rich with the blood of our ancestors, and our bare feet are conscious of the sympathetic touch. Even the little children who live here and have rejoiced here for only a brief season will love these somber solitudes, and at evening time joyfully greet the shadowy, returning spirits of their ancestors. And when the last native person has perished, we haven't, and the memory of my tribe shall have become a myth among the white men, it has. These shores will swarm with the invisible dead of my tribe, they do. And when our children's children think themselves alone in the field, the store, the shop, upon the highway, or in the silence of the pathless woods, they will not be alone. At night, when the streets of your cities and villages are silent, and you think them deserted, they will throng with the returning hosts that once filled and still love this beautiful land. You will never be alone. And I wonder, as we sit quietly in this church today, if we listen deeply, can we hear the songs and the whispers, the stories and the voices of the Multnomah and Clackamas peoples whose land we are now, in this moment, occupying? And I wonder, if we were to journey to Jerusalem and stand in prayerful quiet in the Garden of Gethsemane, or the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, or the upper room of the Last Supper, would we hear the whispers of those ancestors, of the ones who went before? Yesterday, we all know, was the 4th of July. Independence Day, a day celebrating the United States of America as a nation independent from England. The day the Declaration of Independence was adopted, a document that still contains the words, "merciless Indian savages." Independence Day was meant as a day of freedom, but freedom for who? A day made possible by the doctrine of discovery and manifest destiny. The 4th of July was never meant for the first peoples of our lands. The doctrine of discovery, a papal decree that began in the Catholic Church, was later adopted by Protestants and became part of international law. enabled explorers to colonize non-Christian lands by any means necessary, including the genocide of indigenous peoples. These ideas took root and became the backdrop for colonization, for settlement and expansion of the United States as manifest destiny, the belief that American settlers were destined by God to spread across these lands, lands that were inhabited by indigenous peoples. The good news, I'm happy to report, is that your church, the United Church of Christ, along with many other churches, have repudiated the doctrine of discovery. Yay, good job. But do not make the mistake of thinking that your work is done. It is not. There's still a long way to go. We like to think that these antiquated ideas are behind us, but the truth is that as recently as 10 years ago, and it could be more recent because the article I read was a little bit outdated, but the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court laws that were formed by the doctrine of discovery and by manifest destiny are still being used to keep traditional lands out of the hands of indigenous peoples in this country, where we're supposed to be free and supposed to be independent. Often, non-Native people come to me and they tell me to get over it. It happened a long time ago. That is not true. It's still happening. It's happening right now. The God of manifest destiny is now capitalism, and its expansion continues to commit acts of cultural genocide against indigenous peoples. The sacred lands of indigenous people in this country and around the world to continue to be threatened and destroyed on a daily basis. Mauna Kea on the island of Hawaii. The tallest mountain in the world when measured from its base at the ocean floor to its summit. Taller than Mount Everest. Mauna Kea. The place where the earth and the sky separated to form the heavens. The place where the mother and the father of the Hawaiian people first met. It's the origin of the Hawaiian people. A place that holds more than 250 shrines and burial sites is currently under threat by corporations and universities planning to construct a giant telescope, the 14th and largest to be added to the mountain, that further prohibits the use of the land by its original inhabitants. Burial sites and mounds in Alabama, Missouri, Tennessee, California, Georgia, Hawaii, and West Virginia have been disturbed and destroyed in recent years in order to construct Walmarts and Sam's Club stores. These are the bones of our ancestors. These are the bones of the people of this land. Devil's Tower in Wyoming is exploited every day for recreational use and rock climbing. Rock climbers pound their nails into the side of a sacred mountain. The sacred Black Hills, of course, were long ago blasted apart to carve images of colonizing U.S. presidents. By the way, Mount Rushmore, it's illegal to climb. Devil's Tower, you can climb anything you want. The U.S. government is still trying to purchase large portions of the Black Hills, and the tribal peoples refuse to sell because, as they say, the Black Hills are not for sale. Currently, the Lakota people are struggling to keep the Rainbow Family Gathering out of the Black Hills and out of their sacred ceremonial lands. It's happening right now this weekend. The traditional huckleberry fields of my family, of my relatives, of the Pacific Northwest, are being destroyed by commercial harvesting. The plants are being broken. The berries are unable to recover. Every year when my aunties go up to the mountains, in my family, the women in my family are traditional huckleberry gatherers. So in our community and in our family, before the community could have the huckleberries, a certain group of women would go into the mountains and collect the berries. And there were ceremonies and songs that got those berries ready for the community and the people. Now we go and there aren't any berries left. There's very few berries. And the songs and the ceremonies that are part of that are going to. The Winnemem-Wintu people of Mount Shasta region in Northern California are also, along with the people in the sacred Black Hills, tirelessly working to protect their sacred streams and meadows from the incoming Rainbow Family Gathering. So the Rainbow Family thought they were going to have their gathering in the sacred Black Hills. About 3,000 of them realized, hey, this isn't a good thing. It's hard for the traditional people. It's their ceremonial time and their sacred lands. Let's move to Mount Shasta. but that's sacred land to the Winnemem-Wintu people. The Winnemem-Wintu are also struggling to stop the raising of the dam in order to protect their water and their salmon. Pipelines, fracking, drilling, and resulting environmental disasters are threatening tribal sacred sites all across our nation right now. And in Arizona, where Senator John McCain slipped language into a defense bill selling the ancient and sacred ceremonial and burial site of Oak Flat, where the San Carlos Apache and other neighboring communities gather to pray and have ceremony. The land affords them a straight pathway to Creator. The bill was passed, and the land, which has been protected since President Eisenhower's time, has been sold to Resolution Copper, a foreign mining company that plans to blast a mile-deep crater into this sacred land. These are only some of the examples of continued attempts at cultural genocide by the United States government and its laws, by corporations and their greed, by privileged people who do not see the value in indigenous peoples, cultures, or lands when it does not serve them. These are only few of the many attempts and successes in the history of this colonized nation to eradicate sacred indigenous places. Again, I ask you, is this independence? Is this freedom? Are these lands, the lands of Native America, any less holy than the Christian sacred sites in Jerusalem? Would Senator John McCain as easily blow a 2-mile wide and 1-mile deep mining crater on the site of the crucifixion as he is ready to carelessly do with Oak Flat? In the tradition of my people, the Nimipu, the Nez Perce, we have a word called Tamanwit. Tamanwit is my faith. It is the teaching I seek to understand and develop and grow into and with. It is hard to describe because it is alive and it is moving. It is a verb. It is action in the world. It is this thing that's happening right now when I'm speaking to you and you're listening to me, and that connection that has us all right here in this space together, that is that inspired moment, that is Tamanwit. Often it's translated as sacred law or that which was handed down from Creator. I think, yes, it was handed down from Creator to my ancestors, and each generation it's handed down again and again and again. It tells us that in order to keep the world in balance, in order to keep ourselves, our people, our lands, all of creation healthy, we must remember that we are interconnected. We must remember that everything in creation has a purpose. And because we are interconnected, and because we have a purpose, we also have a responsibility to live out that purpose. The nusuk, the salmon, must give its flesh. The huckleberries must give their fruit. The sun must shine, the rain must fall and feed the ground. The people must take care of the salmon, of the huckleberries, of the water, in order for all of them to take care of us. We are related. We are connected. One does not survive without the other. Your scriptures say it too. 1 Corinthians chapter 12 speaks about the variety of gifts each person brings to the whole. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. This is interconnection. This is your scripture reminding you of your purpose and your responsibility to the balance of creation. I want to repeat the scripture again. To each is given the manifestation of the Spirit for the common good. That's your purpose. This is interconnection. And so, if we get quiet, we can listen to the voices of the ancestors of these lands. To the Nimipu, to the Duwamish, to the Suquamish, to the Oglala, to the Dene, to the Apache, to the Hawaiians, to the Monoma, to the Clackamas. Let us listen to the voices of indigeneity. This is my call to you, to talk less and to listen more. Because it is in this listening that we will recognize our connections. We will understand in our bodies the importance of protecting sacred indigenous lands. We will know that in order to survive and thrive in this world, we must protect the places that feed us and nourish us spiritually, culturally, emotionally, and physically. It is this relationship, this interconnectedness, that will heal all of us. Kaitsayayo, my relatives, my thanks for you.